Some villages forget their gods, others try to bury them. I first heard about Ghurni village through an archaeology blog. It was a brief entry. Unexplored temple ruins recently unearthed in West Bengal, believed to be cursed. Local villagers refused to enter. That was enough for me. I run a small paranormal YouTube channel. Not famous, but good enough to get me invited to weird places. I packed my gear, drove for 6 hours, and hiked into the forest where Ghurni was hidden. At first glance, the village was just a cluster of broken homes and fading colors. Looked abandoned, until I noticed fresh footprints. I followed them to a large flat clearing, surrounded by black stone statues, dozens of them, half buried in the earth, faces worn smooth, eyes blank, and in the middle was the temple. It wasn't beautiful, it was broken. Shattered pillars, collapsed roof, but something about it made me feel small, like it was watching me. I set up my camera, started filming. Then I noticed something. None of the locals would go near it. I asked an old man why. He said, "We buried the god here. We sealed it. But now people like you keep waking it up." I laughed nervously. He didn't. That night, I camped near the temple. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of stone grinding. I turned on my flashlight and froze. One of the statues had moved. Not fallen, moved. Its hand was now pointing toward the temple. Another had its head tilted, its mouth open. And behind me, I heard footsteps, but not human ones. Heavy, wet, like something dragging itself across broken stone. I ran into the temple for shelter, thinking it would be safer. Inside, I found stairs leading down. Against my better judgment, I followed them. At the bottom was a pit, circular, ancient, covered in carvings that pulsed under the flashlight. And in the center was a statue, massive, towering, with 6 arms, 3 of them broken, and a gaping hole where the mouth should have been. Then I realized it wasn't a statue, it was breathing. The entire room vibrated with a low hum, like a growl too deep to hear. I backed away, heart racing. But before I could run, a voice filled my head, not my ears, my mind. It said, "You saw me. Now you carry me." I blacked out, woke up in my car, miles from the village. My camera was destroyed, my footage gone, but on the back of my neck, there's a mark, a symbol I've never seen before, burned into my skin. Doctors said it was a reaction. I know better. I haven't uploaded anything since, because when I try to film again, the statues appear in the background, even indoors. If you ever visit a forgotten temple in a remote village, don't go inside. Some gods are not meant to be worshipped. They're meant to be forgotten. There's a village in India that hasn't had water in over 30 years, except for one well. And that well whispers your name when no one else is around. This happened to my cousin Ravi. He was a university student studying rural development and had to spend 1 month in a remote village for his field work. The village was called Bairampur, barely 300 people, surrounded by forest and dry fields. It hadn't rained properly in over a decade, yet somehow they survived. Why? Because of the well. There was only one. Right in the middle of the village, built centuries ago, lined with stone, covered by a rusted iron lid that always stayed shut, unless opened by the village elder. Ravi was told never to touch the well. He asked why. They just said, "The well speaks lies. It remembers everyone who listens." At first he thought it was just superstition, but he noticed something strange. No one ever drew water at night. No one passed by the well alone. And every evening, just before sunset, someone would place a string of lemons and chilies around its base. Then the whispers began. It started around the fourth night. He was staying in a mud house nearby, and he swore he heard someone calling him, softly, from the direction of the well. "Ravi, come here, just one look." He checked outside. No one. The villagers were asleep. The next night, he heard it again. Only this time, it didn't use his name. It used his mother's voice. "Beta, come drink. You must be thirsty." Chills ran down his spine. He told the village elder. The old man looked at him for a long time and said, "The well is not dry. It's full, but not with water. It's full of every soul who listened." He didn't believe it, until one night he gave in. He walked to the well, alone, past midnight. The lid was half open. Steam was rising from the opening. The stones around it were wet, even though the village was dry as bone. He leaned over, and what he saw wasn't water. It was faces. Hundreds of them floating just beneath the surface, eyes wide open, mouths moving without sound, as if screaming underwater. Then one of them looked right at him. It was himself, pale, bloated, reaching up. He stumbled back just as two villagers pulled him away and slammed the lid shut. Later, they told him the well had taken dozens over the years. It calls them when they're weak, sad, lonely. It offers voices they miss, dead parents, lost lovers, even childhood friends. But once you lean in, it never lets go. He left the village the next morning. Today, Ravi doesn't speak much, but when he does, he warns people. If you hear a voice near a well, no matter who it sounds like, don't answer. Don't look. Don't even turn your head. Because in some villages, the dead don't haunt the land. They wait in the water. Some places keep the dead alive, not with love, but with something far more terrifying. This happened to me 2 years ago after my grandmother passed away. At least that's what we thought. My family was originally from a small village in northern India. I'd only visited a few times as a kid. Old school living, tight community. One of those places where everyone knows each other and secrets don't stay hidden for long. Or at least, they're not supposed to. After moving to the city, we didn't visit much. Then one morning my dad got a phone call. Someone from the village said my grandmother had died. She'd been living alone ever since Grandpa passed, and she'd refused to leave her house. Claimed something about guarding the door. I didn't understand what that meant. Anyway, my dad couldn't go. So I did. I took a bus, then a shared jeep, and walked the last 2 miles through overgrown dirt paths. The moment I reached the village, something felt wrong. No one greeted me. People peeked through windows, but no one waved or spoke, like they were afraid of something. Her house was at the edge of the village, near the old mango grove. I stepped up onto the porch and froze. There was smoke coming from the chimney. The front door was open. Inside, I saw her old steel pot still cooking lentils. The bed was made. A sweater I gave her years ago hung neatly on a chair. And then I heard her voice. "Beta, is that you?" I swear to God it was her exact voice. I turned, and there she was, my grandmother, alive, smiling, wrinkled face, bright eyes. Like nothing had happened. She hugged me and said she missed me. I was completely shaken. I even called my dad. He sounded confused and scared. He said, "The village head told me she was found dead 2 days ago." I asked her about it, and she chuckled like I was being silly. "Some people in this village spread lies," she said. "They always have." I stayed that night. I didn't want to. But leaving before dark meant walking alone through a forest road, something I wasn't ready for. That night, I barely slept. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to whispering, not in my head, not outside, inside the house. I crept to the hallway and saw my grandmother standing in the dark, facing the wall, muttering in a language I didn't know. Her head twitched every few seconds, and her fingers scratched at the mud wall, over and over. Then I heard the whisper, "Don't open the door." I backed away into my room, locked the door, and stayed up till morning. When I finally left, I told her goodbye. She smiled, touched my face, and said, "Thank you for coming. Now I won't be alone when the door opens again." I didn't understand what that meant. Back in the city, I got another call a few days later, from the same village elder. He said something strange had happened. The villagers had gone to the house to confirm she was dead so they could do last rites, but found the place burned down, no structure left, no body, nothing. I told him I'd seen her, talked to her. He went completely quiet. Then he said, "Beta, your grandmother died protecting that house. She was the only one keeping something sealed behind that door. If you saw her now, it wasn't her. I never went back. But I have nightmares of her face. Only it's wrong. The mouth is too wide. The skin looks like paper. And the voice, it's not hers. So if anyone tells you that someone you love has died, but you see them alive again, run. Because in some villages, the dead come back. But they don't come back alone." I used to think horror stories were just that, stories, until I saw a village that doesn't exist on any map and almost didn't make it out alive. It started last year. I was on a solo backpacking trip through India. I'd been traveling for about 5 months straight, mostly off-grid, documenting forgotten temples, abandoned settlements, and obscure places tourists don't care about. It was my thing. I loved the quiet, the mystery, the isolation. Somewhere between Himachal and Uttarakhand, I met an old man on a local bus. We talked for maybe 5 minutes, and out of nowhere he said, "If you want a place no one has ever seen, go to Janjargaon, but don't stay after sunset." I asked where it was. He didn't answer, just smiled and got off at the next stop. Later that night I Googled it. Nothing. Not a single result for Janjargaon. No coordinates, no news, no stories. Just an empty page. That's what pulled me in. I asked locals in nearby villages. Most didn't answer, or they pretended they didn't hear me. A few warned me not to go. One guy said, that place was erased for a reason. By the 3rd day, I found a farmer who offered to show me a hidden path. About a 3-hour hike through dense forest, away from all roads. I paid him, followed his directions, and started walking. It was almost sunset when I reached the village. There were maybe 15 houses, old, wooden, but not abandoned. Smoke rose from chimneys. Lanterns lit the narrow paths. Chickens, goats. It looked alive. People were there, staring at me. No phones, no lights, just fire, wood, and silence. One of the villagers, a man in his 50s, stepped forward and smiled. "Welcome," he said. "You are our guest tonight." I told him I'd leave in the morning. He nodded slowly. "That's fine, but you must not leave now, not after sunset. It is forbidden." They gave me food, showed me to a hut with a bed and a lantern. It was almost too kind. I started feeling uneasy. That night I heard screaming. Not just one voice, dozens. I looked out the window and saw something that will never leave me. In the middle of the village, they had a huge pit. A bonfire blazed inside, and standing around it were the villagers, all holding torches. And in the flames was a man, burning alive. I watched in horror as the villagers chanted something in a language I didn't recognize. No one looked panicked. No one screamed. It was like this was a tradition. The man in the fire wasn't a villager. He was wearing a tourist backpack, like mine. I froze. My hands shook. I backed away from the window and blew out the lantern. I didn't sleep, just waited for dawn. At the first crack of light, I ran. I didn't stop, not for food, not for water. I didn't look back. I didn't even take the path the farmer told me about. I ran through thorns, mud, whatever was in front of me, until I reached a small highway and flagged down a passing truck. When I told the driver where I'd been, he went silent. Then he said, "That village burned down 60 years ago. Everyone in it died. No one goes near it." I showed him pictures I'd taken with my camera, but when I opened the folder, it was empty. All the photos I took from the moment I entered the village, gone. I don't talk about this much. Most people wouldn't believe me anyway. But if you ever hear someone mention Janjargaon or a village that isn't on the map, turn around, walk away, because if you don't, you might be the next one thrown into the fire.